Hey, good morning. Oh, wait. No, it's 12 o'clock. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Mary Roderick, and I work for Timothy Nyergis, who's in the audience. And this work also comes from collaboration with our other colleague, Mihalis Avram, who's not here, from the University of Washington. So I'm going to repeat a little bit of what I talked about yesterday. I apologize to those of you who have seen that already, but I feel like those who haven't, it will be kind of weird just to launch right into the technical details of the Structured Participation Toolkit. We are developing this to support collaborative problem solving in the CyberGIS Gateway, and of course among CyberGIS users, so not just in the Gateway. So these are the implementation considerations, but again, to kind of frame what we're doing and why we're doing it. We're all really used to, I think, this kind of user-generated content. This is an example of it that's typical of Web 2.0. This is an example of it in the CyberGIS Gateway, where you can create a map and share the link with someone. Now, what they do with it and how you talk about it and what you decide based on that, we have no idea, because it all happens outside of the Gateway, right? Another example is the Global Risk Data Platform. You can do mapping here, and then you can share it with, very common social media sites. So we're used to some of this. Again, what happens to it, you don't know. ESRI offers the ArcGIS online portal, where you can create maps, and you can share them among your other members of your community, and you can comment on it and you can vote on it. That's, I think, already a step forward. That's something interesting. And we're looking at these types of things, I think, to inform our efforts. Finally, USGS keeps all of us up to date on what's new on their platform and the national map work through a Twitter feed. So these are all very interesting ways of kind of engaging community and interacting with community. But we're truly, and I'll switch to German because I started thinking about my German life when I was looking at that Eclipse SOA platform. This is an example, just a mock-up. We're not there yet. But the idea is that we can integrate the Structured Participation Toolkit right here in your analysis panel. So you have your analysis, you have your data, and then you would have a discussion about that. So we have an integrated analytic deliberative environment. So you're not doing your decision making or solving your problems, of course you probably still are face to face and on phone, because you just can't, deal with the complexity of it in a web page and a small little box there that would be under your brainstorm. But the idea is that we can provide enough functionality that distributed users, both temporally and geographically across the world, can talk to each other about the types of analyses that they're doing with the Gateway. We want that to be, large-scale asynchronous participation. And we want to be able to support consensus building. So this isn't just a chat. There's a structured process to making decisions that's based on Delphi and technology of participation. Those are informing us more abstractly or kind of at a higher level. Herbert Simon's intelligence, design, choice, and iterative reflection. Decision workflow. So those are the things that are the background for the Structured Participation Toolkit. And we want to integrate that directly into the CyberGIS Gateway. Right now it's loosely coupled. And I'll get to those differences in a moment. But we asked ourselves, well, how can we support collaborative problem solving directly in the Gateway? Right now we have a monolithic web application architecture. It's implemented in several wonderful Java frameworks that won't run at UIUC because they have PHP. That's the Gateway's implemented in PHP. It's not implemented in Java. And we have a local client-server architecture. So we have a web browser that's serving up pages on our web server. Well, what we want to do is throw this functionality, this graphical user interface, and these widgets essentially over the fence. We want them to run in the Gateway, and we want them to call our remote server so we can provide the processing and the persistence layers. So that's something similar to a SOA, right? I'm just going to skip ahead because I know I went into more detail on that yesterday. I hope those of you who weren't here read quickly. I want to focus more on the now and the future. We really want to go from coupling to a hybrid. And loose coupling is always, a real goal in SOA. I just spend a lot of time focused on that. This is new for me too. I haven't had to deal with GUI integration. I really haven't. And so I've been challenged myself. And right now we have an iframe that opens in a separate web browser that's really kind of unwieldy for you, especially if you're trying to work on a map and some complex analysis, then you have to switch windows. We are doing single sign-on via token service. We have a dual user management. We transfer application control. You leave the Gateway and you enter into our world. And then you can click through a participatory decision-making or participatory discussion and decision-making process in our world, in the PGIST world, I should say. And we are application context aware. We know that the gateway called us. We know you were looking at viewshed. So that's, we've done some things, but what we want to go to is these embedded GUI widgets. I'll show you an example in just a moment. I showed you the mock-up before. We want to delegate the security. Now that doesn't mean all of it, because we still need to know that we're receiving a request from the gateway. So we're going to, of course, keep some aspects, but we're going to be simplifying that. I can throw out a ton of stuff, but re-architecting and throwing away is challenging, definitely. But we can do it. Delegate the user management. We will still need to know who the user is, because we need to know who's making the comments when we save them. And we'll be delegating the application control. So I'm no longer in charge of the page flow. Struts does that right now for us. That's going to be the gateway's job. And all I'm trying to provide them is, well, I'll show you what I'm trying to provide them after I say how we're doing it. That's kind of weird. Sorry about that. What I've done so far is take something that we've developed for a web browser running on our own web server, calling our Java code. It's using Ajax, easy Ajax. What I've tried to do is now take a lot of this functionality and turn it into widgets using the XJS4 framework, which is beautiful. I hate JavaScript, have to say, and XJS4 makes it much nicer. It makes it like a real programming language. So for those of you who share my hatred, I encourage you to use that if you have to. Do JavaScript. And the reason I chose this is because they both, well, one, it's really nice and the gateway uses as well, but they both speak JSON-P, and that's JavaScript object notation padded. And this allows the client running on another server in another place, for example here, to call our server. That's illegal in like current browser security requirements. That's illegal. You can't do that. The only way, at least I've found so far, so if anyone knows a different way, please tell me later. Not right now, because it'll make me depressed. No. Right now, the only way I found to do it is through this JSON-P, because this injects the information, the response from the server in a script tag. So the client is allowed to execute the script tag on the client side. And that's where you put your server response. So it's essentially a whole process of trying to figure out how to take a lot of functionality, which is in our web application, turn it into these great little JavaScript thingies, widgets, and I can send those files over to Anand and say, great, you can put these anywhere you want in your web page. And you can then call our server, and this XJS allows us to create a client-side data model and store, and it calls our server, the remote server invocation. It's very simple. Here for me, I'm running on localhost. All of this is running on just a regular Apache server that's calling our Tomcat server, so that's, anyway. And there's a method call, essentially prepare concern, with the feedback text that you see in this box. And there's a lot of great stuff under the hood, the JSON-P proxy, that takes that, turns it into a JSON-P message, sends it to our server, and then DWR deserializes it, and can then reply with a response. And that's here, for those of you who have code, a dynamic GUI generation. So these keywords, so you have some comment, I need more documentation and sample data. You can give a lot more feedback than that. And then you get a set of keywords from our text analyzer that you select from that will help us structure your feedback better. We want to go from, and this is, again, this is the first, I think the first application of this is feedback for the gateway. But we can use this and we have used this to develop indicators, for example, climate concerns in a project, an NSF or NOAA project in Oregon. Or Let's Improve Transportation, we were looking at metrics to understand which transportation package to select. So you take a lot of information, people are generating ideas, you basically bring it down into keywords that then become indicators or metrics or action items. It just depends on what you're trying to solve and what you're trying to understand. And we imagine all of this functionality integrated directly into the gateway instead of this separate, loosely coupled web application that we have right now. And these are our next steps. We basically want to identify which of all these capabilities we have to create widgets from, how to bundle those. We need to integrate them directly into the gateway. That should be simple because that's why I chose the technology, and I'm done. Thank you.